Hi, this is Marcus Fairs from Dezeen on our special screen time collaboration with Devon&Devon. And we've got two guests today. We've got Nicola Bertini, who's General Manager at Devon&Devon. Hi there, Nicola.
Hi. Good evening.
Can you tell me where you are? That's a fantastic wallpaper you've got behind you. Where are you speaking to me from?
Here we are in Florence, in Firenze. This is the very first showroom ever made of Devon&Devon. So it's the place where everything started for our history. And maybe we are going to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And then we also have Daniel Stromborg, who's the product development lead at architect Gensler. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, how you doing, Marcus? Nice to meet you.
And Daniel, where are you speaking from?
I'm at my home, like we've all been doing for the last 3 months in Los Angeles, California.
Okay, so we've got a very international triangle going on here. Nicola, tell me a little bit about yourself and about the brand Devon&Devon. What is it? What does it do? And what's your involvement? And how long have you been involved? Tell me the whole story.
Oh yeah, I'm born here in Tuscany, and I'm very happy to be in a Florentine-based company. I entered here in Devon&Devon as a general manager since Devon&Devon was acquired by a very important Italian group that is named Italcer. This was happening some 3 years ago. And the company Devon&Devon was therefore able to make a leap from being a Florence-based company to a real multinational company, having good shoulders thanks to one of the groups that nowadays is in the top 5 groups in Italy, Italian groups for the ceramics and everything that is related to ceramics.
And tell us about the kind of products you make and what is the design ethos of those products and what kind of clients do you have? Where do they get sold or where do they get used?
Yeah, historically, and this is part of the DNA of the company, Devon&Devon has been always working on the total look, starting from the bathroom environments. And when I'm saying total look, it means that, as you were noting, the wallpaper behind me is part of this total look approach. So we have a very extended range of products that are elements that designers can use to create a full Devon&Devon style place, or can take as small pieces for their own specific design in a more eclectic approach. Historically, all the design of the products of Devon was managed internally, but nowadays, being likely the 30th years of the company, so it's the 30th anniversary, we open to collaboration with very important architectural firm, and the one we're discussing about today is Gensler.
And we'll get on to Gensler in just a second, but why is it called Devon&Devon? That's a very English name. Was it founded by 2 people from Devon, or what's the origin of the name?
Exactly, but there's some connection with it. This company, as I was telling you, was born 30 years ago and was founded by 2 architects that had a business idea very, very interesting and a concept of design very interesting. That was basically transforming a functional room, such as a bathroom, into one of the different rooms of the building where you live. And they started looking for an approach of nice design and attention to details. And in that particular historical moment, everything was running after, I would say, kind of a Victorian age style design. And the connection with Devonshire, with you know, it recalls Tuscany in terms of landscape in a way, was making sense with these origins.
Ah, so you consider Devon to be the English Tuscany then?
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't know that. Daniel, over to you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who do you work for? Tell us about yourself and your company.
Sure, yeah. I live in Los Angeles. Like I said, I'm at my home. I work for Gensler, which is obviously, I think most the people viewing right now likely know who we are. We're a rather large architecture and primarily interior design firm, but we do a lot of other consulting work, product work like myself. My own role within there is design director within the product development group. So I don't do interiors, I don't do architecture. I solely focus on product design. That's generally solution-based. It was always solution-based, based on what we see in the marketplace in terms of areas for innovation, areas for improvement, whether or not it's going to be price, warranty, aesthetics, performance, whatever is going to be mandated by the project. And so I've been working with Gensler for about 6 years now.
And how long have you known Nicola? How did you two meet, and how did you come together to do the project that we're about to find out about?
We met, I think, about 4.5, 5 years ago. Nicola, is that about right?
Right.
Yeah, he was with another lighting company prior to this that we've designed a bunch of products for. That's also based out of Florence, and had a great relationship. And so when he went over to run things at Devon&Devon, gave me a call, asked if we were interested in collaborating. Totally different product sector. I've frankly never worked within the bath sector before in my life, and so it's provided some really, really great, I guess, learning curves, right? Sorry, you cut out there for a second. What was that?
This is your first bath you've ever designed.
One more time.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You're cutting out a little.
I hear you.
Let me just try that again. Can you hear me, Daniel?
Yep.
I just said it's the first baths you've ever designed.
What's the best part that we've designed?
No, they're the first baths.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm deaf here. Totally. No, these are the first baths we've designed, and so that provided, I think, I guess, a really interesting launching pad, because I don't have, it's primarily my background and the team that I work with has really been in furniture, because Gensler does we do more interior design work globally than just about anybody else. And as a matter of fact, I think we do more work than anybody else. So my whole team's background is pretty much embedded within workplace design products, right? And so what I believe is when you get into a different product sector, you can kind of take what you've learned from one sector and then apply it towards another sector that, I hate the term thinking outside the box, but in essence, it's thinking outside the box, because ignorance sometimes is bliss. I mean, you ultimately do a lot of research getting into a product market when you enter into it, but you're not, I guess, stuck in a modality of having done all these things in the past. And so I think it gives a really set of fresh eyes. And that was, I think, to our benefit, and I think Nicola will agree with this, is why we were able to, frankly, I think, innovate in a product sector, which is bathtubs, that, hasn't seen a lot of innovation since Kohler introduced a horse's trough with legs on it back in the late, 19th century. And so, I mean, there's been tons of improvements, don't get me wrong, in terms of materiality and form, but where I think we're kind of doing something interesting right now is the fact that, we created this modular bathtub concept that we brought to market with Devon.
Why don't you show us a presentation and talk us through the work that you do and the products that you've done with Gensler, with Devon&Devon.
Yeah, totally. Whoa. All right. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so I kind of first thought it'd be important, and I touched upon this earlier, is that we're an architecture and interior design firm, and one of the reason I came to Gensler a number of years ago was really because of the fact that we've got 6,000 employees around the world that I can tap into for research. And I think to do good design and to do thoughtful design of any sort, really. You tapping into expertise, whatever that's going to mean, is quintessential and key to developing good product. And so I'll show a couple of different types of projects really quick that we have worked on recently, and how I guess the story came about in terms of what we delivered without diving in too deep. This is a system we developed with another Italian company called Fantoni. It was Atelier. We launched it last year, and it's a really interesting project because of the fact that it addressed a client's need insofar as introducing products that were mobile, highly mobile, hypermobile even, as well as super flexible, right? And so this was something that we tested in our own offices in London. Was the first place we did installation for. It's great that we can test our own things and our own projects that we live in essence, all the time. And yeah, so this launched last year. We got some nice accolades from the Dezeen community as well. We shortlisted for the award last year. But really, it was a focus on the flexibility and mobility versus this product, which is an American company called Stylix that ultimately we brought to market last year as well. At Neocon, we launched it. And this is again addressing about flexibility, but it's flexibility in a very different way from a planning standpoint. And it's the idea that we have tied over a lot of the thinking that we learned on these projects to the Devon project in terms of modularity. In terms of flexibility. What's been interesting about coming to Gensler is that I had no idea, having not worked with so many interior designers before, the need for customization. It really doesn't matter how perfect of a product you believe you've launched in the market. The reality is that someone's always going to want to change it. And to be able to bring something that accepts that and adopts that up front, right, and can account for that in terms of how it's manufactured, right? Because ultimately what my role is and my team's role is to produce something for somebody like a Devon that is easily manufactured, at the same time easily customizable without having to open new molds or do things that are outside the norm, in regards to what the designers or the end user is going to want. So, the collaboration that we got forward with, or came forward with Devon, was the brief that we were given from Devon was based on, we were asked to produce something that ultimately had some sort of Art Deco reference, because we're seeing a resurgence right now, quite large in Art Deco or, historically referential furniture, right? Because let's be totally honest, there's so much furniture out there. Do we need more product? Probably not. And this is coming from someone who designs this stuff. And so how do we do something differently? How do we do something innovative? How do we do something at the same time that's timeless, that isn't so temporally based that it's, or even so thematically based? So, we looked at, part of the research was, diving into this Art Deco movement and what Art Deco meant. It bifurcates into, a couple different camps, but the area that we were ultimately really interested in was this concept of streamlined modern, and how, from the standpoint of just simple geometry, I'm a big fan of keeping it simple, stupid. I'll be the first to admit that I like simple shapes. And there was something really interesting and alluring about some of the forms that came out of, and something also, frankly, very American, which is a huge departure for Devon in terms of how they chose to collaborate us. Right? We're in many ways an international firm, but we're founded in America. And so the American spin that we had on streamlined modern ultimately, really informed the form language that we were going for. And so, we looked at a strictly Art Deco type referential design, and we know that we as Gensler, part of what, or if you want to call it an ad service, is that we ultimately like to be able to specify the products that we've designed ourselves, right? And that's part of why we do what we do from a business standpoint, right? There's business and then there's design, obviously. But the notion that having a tub that could be flexible, that could work in a myriad of environments, spaces, whatever those typologies might be, that could create a really unique experience, at the same time talk to what you might call the familiar form, the familiar design language. And it kind of led us down this kind of a split path, if you will, right? How do we create something that is going to satisfy this idea of Art Deco, and at the same time be flexible enough to get outside of that and speak a very contemporary design language? And so we came up with this modular approach, and frankly, it was partially due to the fact that there were two tubs that we liked in the development process, and we wanted to do both of them. And so we came up with this notion that, you know, if we, in essence, have a kit of parts, right? Like this proverbial kit of parts that everyone always talks about, but this notion that you have a couple different tub designs and a couple different vessel designs that are in essence based on the same mold, you can have a really expansive collection that allows all the customization that designers at the end of the day want. And a lot of that comes through materiality and color, right? So we came forward, and at the end of the day, you know, throughout the development process, we ended up with two different form languages for the tub inserts. One's called the Dove, one's called the Holiday. The Dove is a very contemporary, clean aesthetic to it. You know, it's not overly ornamental, but at the same time, it has these subtle curves that reference back to the Art Deco period, versus the Holiday tub insert, which, you know, in speaking to the interior designers that were working on hotels or hospitality crew, there was an ask that they were saying is, you know, how do we have deck-mounted taps and faucets without having to have an access door on the back? And it becomes a huge issue from a maintenance standpoint, from an installation standpoint, for hotel developers to have this style of a freestanding Roman tub without having to have a freestanding unattached plumbing fixture. And so part of what we were, I guess, tasked internally within Gensler was how do we figure out how to solve that? And so we came up with this basically a two-part system where we have the vessel, which is the shell, and you'll see in the next slide, and then the inserts, right? And so, and what became interesting is that during the development process, we were really kind of thinking myopically in terms of a Roman tub, right? Just one outside that you could plop two insides inside of. And it wasn't until we did the first prototype review, you know, in Italy, flew out there, that we saw this insert, the Dove insert, kind of standing by itself off on the factory floor. It hadn't been put into a vessel yet, that we realized that there was, if we redesign that insert, it can in fact become a standalone tub. So I like to call it happy accidents, that, you know, we ultimately came up with this notion that we could have yet a, you know, tertiary solution for this that would be a standalone tub, and then reference back to some of these classic clawfoot, you know, or old school tubs that, you know, we're very familiar with from a design standpoint. Just some process shots in terms of how this thing goes together, because I think it helps explain the story, where it's a solid surface material called White Tech that Devon uses, and cast material, and super robust, cleanable, fixable, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure Nicola can speak to it far more intelligently than I can. But it's a beautiful material to work with. It's super flexible. It allowed us to do exactly what you're seeing here, where we create, in essence, this system, right? The tub that you're seeing here is called the Holiday, which has the deck-mounted faucets you can see mounted on the deck and back. This one has the solid surface plinth, which was another potential that we wanted to bring forward in terms of customization. Is how do you allow someone to have something slightly more ornamental, right? So we have this plinth, and this is part of the casting itself, versus you can have it also wrapped in Calicut marble. You know, one of the great things about working with Devon is also that they're based out of this area that is, you know, one of the hearts of some of the best marble in the world. So we have a cladding, a ring in essence, that allows you to customize it and really kind of create this luxurious bath component. Or we can take off that plinth entirely, and it sits directly on the ground, and so it's a much more modern aesthetic. And so, yes, we came up with you know, this is a really great, I guess, you know, showing of the products that we came up with. Frankly, this is the Holiday. It's got that optional marble ring on it that's got a slight groove pattern, yet again referencing back to the Deco period. Same thing with the lip. The lip was something that it's always one of those funny things from a designer standpoint, how long you labor on these seemingly, you know, ridiculous details down the road, but at the time, like, you know, it becomes this obsession. How much do you do, you know? And then likewise, you know, that same tub can be morphed into a totally different animal here, which is a much cleaner, much more modern aesthetic, and again, fit into a whole host of spaces that otherwise, you know, the Holiday might not be appropriate for. And then the one that I love is this little guy here, which is the freestanding, which was the insert that was the happy accident, where we were able to go back and resurface some of the geometry, specifically in the foot and the drain, which you can't really see here in back, but sort of very purposely remodel it in the hopes of taking it into a separate product. And so, yeah, so that's our collection that we are launching.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Can you share your screen?
Yep.
I think I figured out what the sound problem was. I think
my Bluetooth earphones. I'm going to take them off. Can you hear me now?
Not
Much
much.
better. Totally. Yeah. Let's blame Apple on it.
Brand new AirPods. I only used them 3 times. We figured out, at least we solved what the problem was. Thanks.
Always Apple's fault.
Nicola, maybe I could bring you in now to talk a little bit about how you make the product, because Daniel there was talking about solid surface materials and marble and things like that. Do you have your own production facilities? How do you make a bath? How do you make something that big that has to have such kind of high finish on it?
Well, our industrial setup is pretty much similar to that of a fashion industry. So, of course, dealing with different technologies. So the White Tech Plus that Daniel just mentioned, or on the other hand, marble, it implies that we take marble from caves. You can easily understand that we are working with craftsmen here in the surroundings of Florence that are specialized in the different technology. So our effort is of course in the design, is in the quality control, is in the R&D in general terms. And then we integrate this different knowledge that has been developed here in the territory, and we arrive to the final product.
But you have your own factories, or do you work with local craftspeople?
We do have our factory here in Florence, yes. And then, of course, we work and we source the material with from different partners that are specialized in specific technologies.
And this notion of having a tub that sits inside a plinth and then can also then sit inside a box, is that, I've not seen that before. I'm not an expert on bathrooms, but is that something quite new?
Daniel, am I answering, or are you answering? I'm answering from my side. I think it's totally new in the way it has been designed. I mean, one of the requirements of the colleagues of Daniel in Gensler was very clear: to find a technical solution enabling to hide all the technical paraphernalia and pipes and whatever, and in an elegant way. And it was not an easy task, I would say, and that is really innovative. And using an innovative material enable us to realize a specific design task.
Yeah, I would.
And Nicola, when people are installing baths in hotels and places like that, is it presumably it's a big demand for them to not be able to see the stuff? And is that for visual reasons, or is that for cleaning reasons? What is the driver behind that, the monolith approach?
I would say that everything you say is a good reason for that. But I would go back to the origins of Devon&Devon, to what I was telling you is the DNA of this company. If you want to transform a room from a functional area to a place where you live, you have to take care of every single detail. And we strongly believe in the intelligence of the people we work with. And this is probably one of the best reasons why we strongly wanted to work with Gensler, because finding a solution that no one finds so far in such an elegant way was very important for us. Maybe it will be noted visually by the users of an hotel. Maybe not, and it will work just on a different psychological level, but it will be perceived. Taking care of details and working on that is something that is enhancing the perception. Whether you perceive it with your eyes or not, you will feel it. So this is our approach in terms of care of details. And that's it.
Yeah, Marcus, real quick, I think there's another, everything is dead right, but I think there's another very programmatic reason why this is important from a specification standpoint, which again is sort of where our internal team came in, is that it in a lot of hotels in America, at least, it's a kind of a funny thing, but it's a point system that's applied when cleaning crews come into spaces, and by having a very clean surface that they can, clean quickly and efficiently, becomes, I guess, a driver in a lot of specifications for hotels. And so having that capability of having a low point clean product that has deck monitor, all that kind of stuff, becomes, from a specification standpoint, becomes really a strong driver on why we would want to specify that.
But why go down the approach of having a tub that sits inside the plinth? Because you've got two baths then, effectively. Why not have one model that has the plinth and one model that doesn't have the plinth? Is there a kind of an efficiency or a manufacturing benefit to having these two separate components?
Well, yeah, I mean, because basically you've got the shell, right? The shell has the plinth attached to the bottom in the mold, but it can be cut off. Or, there's different manufacturing techniques where they kind of shut that off so they don't mold with it. But that becomes a shared part, right? And so you're not doing redundant products in terms of manufacturing processes, if that answers your question.
And Daniel, you said there hasn't been much innovation in baths since like 100 years or more. Why is that? Is that because there's not many places to go with basically a kind of large bucket of water that people are going to sit in? Or is it because people haven't really thought about it and it hasn't kept up with material technology or technologies or new ways that people might want to use water in the home?
I think there's a lot of answers to that question. One is materiality, right? Like using White Tech or White Tech Plus is, this type of material allows you to do phenomenal things. And there's some really beautiful sculpted tubs out there. I mean, within the Devon lineup or within other lineups, that stuff exists. I mean, we're not innovating that respect per se, but I don't think anybody's ever approached the market sector from the standpoint of how do you rationalize multiple designs, reusing singular parts to create very different aesthetics, right? I think there's solutions out there that are single body. I mean, like to your question, we could have very easily made a mold in which this thing was one piece, right? One monocoque type unit. But from a business standpoint, it wouldn't necessarily be as smart, right? We're not amortizing the cost of the tooling as far out as we could with this other idea, right? Because then we're having smaller tools, smaller volume, more flexibility. And so I think that, as far as I know, and Marcus, I'm a lot like you. This is my first time playing in the bath world in general. But in all the research we did, we never saw somebody who was approaching it from this POV.
Nicola, these particular products, what do you expect your clients to be? Will they all go to hotels, or will you also have domestic customers? Will they go to holiday homes? Where do you expect to sell them? Through showrooms, through mass orders?
Well, actually, the modular approach adopted with the design with Daniel was meant to address different configurations to different businesses. So there are versions that we are sure will work better and will be more focused and oriented to the contract business for the hotel business. At the same time, once you are able to play with accessories such as the marble plinth, definitely that we are not expecting to see that much in hotels. Maybe in some of the nicest rooms, but in a way they are much more addressed to a residential, high-end residential use. So the important aspect is that we are able to decline it and to give an interpretation to the product for different kind of destinations. And I think that the images that Daniel used in his presentation, the last three pictures, were pretty much oriented in that way. If you think one might be a nice villa here in Tuscany or in the Devonshire, one it's nice residential place with a more modern approach, I would say, in design down in New York City. The other one could have been easily an outer room.
Could they be used outside?
Say it again, sorry?
Can they be used outside? In the garden, on the terrace?
No.
Okay.
I don't think they can't be used outside, can they, Nicola?
No.
No. Okay.
Daniel, tell me a little bit more about the product team at Gensler. The team sits within an architecture firm, but is most of your work for external clients, or does it often come from within the architecture practice itself?
No, we don't. It's an interesting question, is that we don't, I don't personally get involved in any kind of like custom millwork for, a professional services firm or something like that. I mean, ultimately, the product development, what we call product development practice area, is a standalone studio that we've got, people in New York, DC, Chicago, Portland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and Houston. It's always client-based work, somebody like Devon or Fantoni or Stylex, the other examples that I showed you, where it's a brief-driven project, whether or not we're creating or co-creating the brief, or companies are coming to us with briefs, or we're frankly just pitching ideas to a company because of, let's just say JP Morgan Chase comes to us and says, hey, we want blah, 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 or Google, whatever client we're going to talk about, comes to us with a recurring need within their workplace that we're seeing trends. And then that helps us inform products that ultimately we're going to, co-develop with a company and bring to market. But it's never something that's done internal to us. We don't manufacture, we don't distribute it, we don't do sales, we don't market products itself. But yeah.
And give me an idea of the range of different products you work on. This is the first time you've done bathtubs, but what other things would you typically be working on?
Oh, we've done. This is the really fun thing about working at Gensler, is that we literally touch every typology of product you can pretty much imagine, right? So everything from, if you talk about interior spaces, literally everything from the ceiling to the floor. And so we've done a lot of lighting work. We've done a lot of carpet work. We've done a lot of desking work, chair work. We have certain voids in our portfolio, task chairs, for instance. We haven't developed a task chair yet, which I'm excited to do. Bathroom accessories, not tubs and stuff like that. So textiles, glass, tiles,
Everything.
Literally everything, yeah, totally.
And Nicola, at Devon&Devon, is it normal when you're developing a new product to go to an external design company? Do you have your own designers, or do you look around the world and choose different people every time? How does that work in terms of developing new design ranges?
Yeah, for 30 years, for the first 30 years of the company, was not typical to work with external designers. But we thought that we were closing a circle in a way. The company was started from two architects, and in the 30th year, we started a collaboration with two very important internationally recognized architectural practices. And it was really an important selection about Gensler and the other practice, because we decided to open in the moment that we were sure that our image and brand perception was really strong. And once you feel strong, you are able to open to others. So this has been our approach. And what Daniel was just saying, their capability to work on different materials, from everything, he said, from the rooftop to the flooring, was very, very important for us. because it's something that was connecting Devon&Devon and Gensler. As I told you, Devon&Devon is working on every single detail within the room, and having someone able to understand this approach, such as Daniel and his colleagues, was fundamental for us. So we carefully selected Gensler.
And for both of you, tell me, what are the trends that are informing bathroom design today? I mean, Daniel, you went for this kind of Art Deco, or you called it a streamlined, modern look. But what are customers looking for in bathrooms? What are the new things that they're asking for? How are bathrooms changing? Is sustainability a big issue? It's a big open question, but what's new in bathrooms and what's coming up?
I'll answer from my side. I mean, the majority of feedback that I get within my sort of ecosystem at Gensler is all super reactionary right now to COVID, right? And so it's touchless everything, which is an interesting shift. And you know, before it was still, you know, in the contract world. I'm not talking about in the hospitality sector per se, but it was strongly grounded in this idea formally about, you know, water conservation, sensor-based taps, and stuff like that. And I would say over the last 3 months, I've had more requests from different design directors, design principals around the firm to investigate all these other touchless systems, whether or not it's going to be touch-free lavatory doors, or obviously improving upon touch-free systems for faucets. That is where, at least in the contract market, the world that Gensler typically plays in, is the largest driver that we have right now. And so I'm kind of forecasting that, you know, as we you know, at least in America, we're not really quite returning to the workplace quite yet. I mean, we are starting to see some openings, but we're going to see a lot of renovations happening in that sector purely based on that, you know, performative functionality. But that's, again, in the contract space, not necessarily in the hospitality space. Although I do think that within the hospitality world, we're going to see a lot of the same stuff kind of trend out in terms of the same requests.
Yeah, we've been hearing the same thing from all kinds of architects and designers that we've been talking to. But what about from your point of view, Nicola?
Well, I would divide the design aspects from the technical aspect. Design-wise, you mentioned the streamlined, modern. This is something that we are deeply investigating in Devon&Devon due to our research for, let me say, classical or modern classical archetypes. As I was telling at the beginning, we look after rooms that can be lived in time. And we find that the classical lines or the classical language, it means that we are able to create rooms and environments that will last for a longer time. And this is somehow related to the second part of my answer. So what is the technical aspect? Sustainability. This is what we are asked for. And sustainability means make the comparison with other fields of design, the fashion industry. I think it was Armani saying that we have to go back to a slow design. Well, this is very much in line with the theme of sustainability, because it means that the product will be there for a much longer time, not sensible and affected by continuously changing trends. Once you give that promise to the customer of sustainability, you have then to work on materials. And being part of a group that is specialized on ceramics, and being ceramics one of the most durable materials with incredible performances for the hygiene, it means that we are able to work on the technical side, taking advantage of the internal knowledge about that materials. So I would say design for us declined in our own way, but also a deep look and a very strong attention to whatever is technical, bringing a product to live longer and giving the possibility to have this high attention on hygiene that is very typical of this age, I would say.
And finally, I'm sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
No, I was going to say, I think, Nicola, I think you touched on something really important. That's interesting, you know, especially when this COVID stuff hit, right? It hit right during our design festival, which is why we're doing virtual, right? I mean, I assume this was a reactionary measure to, I'm really curious now that we'll see almost an entire year of canceled design festivals, which is a huge bummer, I think, for all of us from the standpoint of product launches, seeing, you know, awesome new stuff, getting to travel and see friends from all over the world and you know, Milan or Cologne or London, wherever it's going to be. But I do wonder if it's going to have longer standing ramifications in terms of what Nicola said about more fashion-based work, where, you know, we stop thinking long-term, right? And it's this rush to get more stuff in front of people's eyeballs, and we're not thinking from a sustainable standpoint and you know, more or less from a design standpoint. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff coming out, but I don't know if we need it all.
And that was kind of going to be my final question, sort of, which was, on the one hand, sustainability has been something that people have been increasingly concerned about for a few years now. And then on the other hand, the COVID-19 situation, as you say, Daniel, has made people rethink how they interact in spaces. Are you hopeful that these two trends can come together, that we can have more concern about sustainability and want less and want more lifelong, long-lasting products? Because there's also the opposite concern, is that people become more obsessed with disposability of having gloves that you can throw away and so on and so forth. Is there a chance that this can lead to a profound change for the better?
Personally, I mean, I hope so. I mean, you know, the interesting thing about, you know, we're this weird place that we're in right now, and you mentioned, like, you know, rubber gloves and stuff like that, is what the sustainability backstory is between all these products that we're now being asked to put into projects. You know, what's the afterlife of them? I'm not really sure. You know, I'm not a material scientist. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not. But I'd be really curious what the afterlife is. A lot of these products that are bleach cleanable, because they have to be so robust, you know, are they in fact at the end of the day fully recyclable in the same way that some of the other ones? And I truly believe that they are, because most of the companies that are pushing these things out are, you know, well-minded organizations. I don't know, it's an interesting question, because we're going to see, you know, I personally believe we're going to see this phased approach where, you know, for a while people in the beginning of this is the desk is dead, right? And so what happens to all this aftermath of the desk? I think we've moved past that, and we'll see a phased approach that's going to happen over time, where we're doing these incremental shifts of bringing more and more people back as we see a solution come out. But I don't know, Nicola, if you've got something else.
No, I think, yeah, in a way, that there are products and items in which there is an increasing need for durability. And this has to balance the increased quantity of products such as masks and all these things that you have to throw away. Definitely, what is important, I think, is that for the bathroom environments, we have to consider that they are becoming more and more a safe place where each user is really alone and by himself. And again, it's a real place where we have to look for durability and sustainability of the products. Kind of a refuge, safe place, how do you call it in English? where you forget all that word outside, where you throw things away, and gloves and masks and all that stuff that we are now forced.
Yeah, a refuge or a retreat.
A retreat.
Well, thank you very much. I've in the last couple of days left my retreat and come back to the office. As you were saying, people are gradually getting back. There's been 5 of us in the office here today, so it looks like things are returning to some kind of normality. And it's been great speaking to you both, Daniel and Nicola. Thank you so much, and good luck with the new products.